Hey, 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 hey. We are late, but we are still here. This is the Helping Friendly Podcast live, which means sometimes we start a little bit late, but that's okay. It happens. We can't all be on time. We don't ask fish to be on time. We don't make you all wait around for 30 minutes for us to show up. But, we're a little bit tardy today. We recorded a bonus episode. We had some planning that we had to do before we went live, but we're here. It's Wednesday, and today we're not just talking about fish. We're talking happy fish. We're talking humorous fish. We're talking zany fish. We're talking somewhat collegiate, inappropriate humor fish. We are talking at times wild, jammy fish. We are talking Nectar's fish. We're going to be covering fish at Nectar's, the 3-night run that they did from 6/19 to 6/21, 1988. I was 3.5 years old. It was an election season. The Los Angeles Lakers had just won the NBA Finals. I don't really know anything else that happened in 1988. RJ, you're slightly older than me. No offense. What happened in 1988 that you recall?
I actually do remember. I remember that presidential election. It's pretty weird, but I think I was. How old was I? I was 9. I remember it was, George H.W. Bush. Strange times.
Were you negatively affected by Dukakis in the tank?
No, I would have voted for him anyway. I actually, I do think that's one of the reasons why I ended up becoming a Democrat, as I saw George H.W. Bush and I was like, who is this? Like, why is this guy like, he's so old and seems like such a nerd. Like, why would we want him to be our president? So, I thought Bill Clinton was awesome because he seemed cool.
Oh my God. I had the biggest crush on Bill Clinton. I got to meet him once too.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, he signed my book. It was like a book thing at like a Barnes and Noble. I mean, I was like an adult at this point, but his blue eyes, dreamy.
He's a real charming guy. That's what I hear.
Yeah, that's the story on him.
That's the story. I don't know. 1988, there's a lot of good like 80s music that was released in 88. That's the other thing I would say.
Again, what do you recall about 1988? I don't want to get ageist here with you guys, but what do you recall about 1988?
It's fine. I'm the oldest here. I was 11. Not much. I mean, 1988 for me was probably a lot of singing and dancing. I was in the musical The Music Man at my community theater. So I was singing a lot, wearing like large cotton bows in my hair for the production, and probably annoying my family singing this musical over and over again. Yeah, not too much.
That's amazing. And that brings us back to needing Megan to do more singing, which is going to be great. But can I just go back to pop music in 1988 just quickly, just to tell you guys what a few of the top albums from 1988?
Please.
I actually just pulled up a list as well, but I would love for you to tell us it too.
What? The Dirty Dancing soundtrack.
Oh my God. Okay. This was actually what was going on in my life in 1988. I was obsessed with the soundtrack. My friend and I listened to it all the time. We used to make up dances that were like slightly inappropriate. We watched this movie. My parents said I couldn't watch it, probably because there's like an abortion alluded to in the movie, but that just went over my head. And I watched this movie like secretly, obsessively at my friend's house all the time. So thank you. Yes.
That was my first entry. That was it. That was the first. Okay, a couple more, but that's amazing. I think I saw it when I was 8 or something. That's weird, or 10. Faith by George Michael. Okay, now Appetite for Destruction comes out in 1988. New Jersey by Bon Jovi. Rattle and Hum. I mean, those are just the highlights. I would say Hysteria by Def Leppard, but it's over time I've realized that Def Leppard is the most overrated rock band in the history of music. That's how I feel at the moment anyway.
I feel like you're
They have
trying to
good
start a fight on
iconography,
Fish
though.
Twitter already.
Yeah,
Let's
seriously.
do it.
There are some
good
notable people
iconography.
out there that will defend Def Leppard to the death, or the death, if you will.
Tetris.
My Bloody
Yes,
My
totally.
Bloody Valentine's Isn't Anything. Their debut record came out.
Oh, wow.
NWA, Straight Outta Compton. Public Enemy, It
Oh.
Takes a Nation of Millions to Hold Us Back.
Oh,
Sonic
great
Youth,
music.
Daydream Nation. Metallica and Justice for All.
Wow.
The Pixies, Surfer Rosa. Eric B. and Rakim follow the leader. And one of my favorite albums of all time, Talk Talk, Spirit of Eden, which if you haven't heard it, I cannot recommend it enough. It is one of the, there's no Kid A without that record. It's amazing stuff. R.E.M's Green
Also,
came out.
Eric B. and Rakim, that shit is awesome. Awesome.
Awesome.
I think I don't know if anyone's still watching after this, but I appreciate this dive into 1988. Maybe we should do this every time we talk about a show. And if we're
It's
talking
so
about a 2022 show, we can, it'll be easier.
This is going to be a new segment of the show.
Good.
I like it. This is cool.
We're stealing from 36 in the Vault, which I can do because I make that show. We're stealing what was going on at the time. We're not going to go as specific, well, maybe we will. Who knows? I don't know. We'll see what we do. But this was fun. This was fun diving into records from 1988. Last one, Paula Abdul, Forever Your Girl.
Oh my God. I used to make up so many roller skating dances to Paula Abdul. I mean, a lot of roller skating dances.
Brian Golenberg with just the excellent call. Bug by Dinosaur Jr. Amazing stuff. My first memory on planet Earth is from 1988. My dad took me to see U2 Rattle and Hum in the theaters, and I was just like running up and down. It was the first movie I saw in the theaters. It was like when I realized like my dream in life is to be a rock star. And then I settled for just second best, which was being a podcast rock star, which, that's what we're doing here, right? So anyway, Brian. I made it slightly. We are here today to talk 1988 Fish. Just had to add that in there. Before we do that, we should probably tell people out there about our favorite CBD company, Sunset Lake Cbd. Anybody want to talk about Sunset Lake Cbd, or do you want me to do it again?
I'm happy to do it, Brian. I love to talk about Sunset Lake.
I'll let you go off the rails.
I don't know if I'll go off as bad as you do, but I'll definitely tell everybody about Sunset Lake Cbd because their line of smokable hemp products are for the old deadhead or the young fish fan searching for a mellow body high. Smoking CBD has all the benefits of high THC cannabis without the paranoid and anxious side effects. With 9 different strains from this year's harvest, there is something for everyone. The Hawaiian Haze is awesome for an outdoor show, and Cherry Abacus is best for the end of the night. All the flower is grown, cured, and trimmed by Sunset Lake CBD farmers. Even better, they have a farm-to-table approach that gets you great pricing on premium CBD flower by shipping directly from their farm to your door. They have super fast shipping, and I think that, RJ, now you've learned that you have to keep these CBD Sleep Gummies next to your bed. They have to stay on your bedside table.
Yep.
They are, anytime I'm getting into bed and it's either like super late or I know I need to sleep really well, I have them right next to me and I take one. It helps so much. They have melatonin in them and they're incredible. So order some today and they'll be at your door very soon. So check them out today. SunsetLakeCBD.com and use the coupon code HFPod. You're going to get 20% off all your products. They also have a huge sale right now going on. It's like 50% off all their flower, I think, which is crazy. So Sunset Lake CBD, farmer owned, Vermont grown.
Just want to add to that yesterday, one of our AC units, we have 2 that it doesn't matter, but one of them stopped working when we were putting our kids to bed. Luckily, it was only like 75 yesterday or 80. It wasn't that hot, but we still didn't have AC overnight. And I was sort of like hot and I knew I wouldn't sleep that well and woke up at 5 and had a hard time going back to sleep. And guess what? I did not put the Sunset Lake CBD gummies in my bedside table for the second time.
Come
I know.
on.
So now I'm writing myself a note because when that happens again, I need to make sure that I'm prepared. So everyone else who's listening or watching, write yourself a note to go to sunsetlakecbd.com and use the code HFPod.
You won't forget then.
On Monday, when we were recording our last episode, my 16-week-old puppy decided to eat a tube of like ointment that my wife has.
Oh no.
And it's a metal tube. And I got out of the recording to find out that she was at the emergency vet with him and nobody knew what was happening. She was on the phone with a toxicologist. Ultimately, I think he's going to be okay. But she came home and she was on one. Like, she had a busy day at work, and then she had this insane dog. Like, he is the most insane dog at this point in time, who potentially ate poison and was going to just like, his intestines were going to be all like tied up. It could have been crazy. So we finished dinner, and I said, "You need 2 Sunset Lake CBD gummies. I'll give them to you. You need to go in the room. You need to go to bed at like 7:30 at night." She had a great night's sleep. And I got up in the middle of the night to deal with the dogs. And then last night, I had a Sunset Lake CBD gummy. So please check out Sunset Lake today at sunsetlakecbd.com and use coupon code HFPod for 20% off all products. Sunset Lake CBD, farmer owned and Vermont grown. Do you like how we extended that ad there?
I did, and
more insight.
I'm glad your pooch is going to be okay.
I think he'll be all right. The funniest part out of all of this was that
it was funny. Okay, keep
going. Is this
going.
still the ad?
Yeah, exactly.
No,
is this still Lawn Boy? Is this still Brian's ad?
The last thing, my son was very distraught over it. My son and I like to hit baseballs to our dogs right now, and only one of our dogs, Jerry, the one that ate the ointment, chases the baseballs. Stella just chills out and then fights him when he brings the baseballs back.
She's no dummy.
She knows how it works. She's like, "I'm just gonna wait here. You bring it back. I'll fight you and I'll take the ball." Well, we brought her outside solo and we tried to hit baseballs to her, and she didn't. She was like, "I'm not falling for this game." And Wally goes, "So what are we gonna do if we don't have a dog that wants to chase baseballs?" I was just like, I don't know what to tell you, man. I don't know what to tell you. But he was okay.
That's good. Our viewers are like commenting about what we're supposed to be talking about today. They're like, "Please, could you start talking about what we're supposed to be talking about today?"
That's a very natural transition to the 619 to 621 run at Nectar's. We've talked about Nectar's a bunch. I don't know if there's anything that we need to like dive into from a venue standpoint here. It's Nectar's. It's a bar in downtown Burlington, Vermont. You can still go there, still get gravy fries. Tiny stage is still in the corner. Like, you walk in and you're like, "Oh my God, this is where it happened." It's insane. Like, I don't know about you guys. The first time I walked in, I was like, this is the room that it happened. And what were your guys' first impressions when you went there?
Yeah, same as that.
Yeah, I was surprised. I had also had like a lot of Vermont beer before I went. I think we were drinking Heady Toppers. So I don't really have that many memories, but I just remember being like, "Wow, this is it." I thought it was going to be bigger, more majestic or something. But it was cool to be there. At first, they wouldn't let my husband in because his driver's license had expired, and he had like some weird piece of paper that said that he was actually like legal. But this was not when we were like mid-20s, this was like late 30s. Like, there's no way he was not over 21, and like it was a whole thing, but we got him.
I do have some stuff to say about Nectar's, Brian. Is that okay?
Please have at it. This is your show.
Well, it's our show, but thank you. All right. So we're talking about 3 shows, 619, 620, 621. 3 shows that happen on a Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday night, which is sort of strange 3-night run, but that's how it goes when you're trying to play as much as you can. So they played 46 shows at Nectar's between December 84 and March of 89. So this is sort of toward the end of their Nectar's residency. There's only 7 more shows there after these, and like clearly they were starting to grow more and tour more, but they still got this Sunday to Tuesday run, and they're clearly like playing 9 sets in 3 days is it's a lot. I mean, they could probably do it now. I bet they would like to do it now, but it's still a lot of music. And I just think it's interesting in the context of it being sort of toward the end of the run, at Nectar's, and clearly they were popular enough to play for 3 nights. But there's a lot of people talking at these concerts. A lot of fucking people talking.
So much talking. Yeah, I was thinking that too. Yeah, it's pretty incredible, and just also like shows their commitment to playing these like, morality tale songs from a rock opera like Tila. You hear them playing that, and you're like, God bless you. Playing this like beautiful, soft, very intensely composed song, and people are just like chatting it up. But it is cool to hear when people actually quiet down. You hear it at certain moments. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's kind of wild that like by this point, I mean, we talked a couple months ago about 4/29/87, so about a year and change prior to this, where a lot of songs are debuted, and you hear various elements of Fluffhead like arranged throughout the show, and a lot of songs that would just be abandoned. Like a year later, they've played their first festivals, in quotes, like they've created festivals. They've played the Ranch a few times. Where they're at right now, mid to late June 1988, they're about to play Pete's Fabulous Fish Festival a month later, which is where they're going to debut Mike's Groove for the first time, kind of this formative moment. But then they're going to get in the car 2 days later after playing another Nectar's gig, and they're going to drive to Colorado. Like, this is really the start of like Phish as, okay, if we're going to go for it, we got to go for it. And it's wild, like as Brian Golenberg says here in the chat, which Brian, we got to be in touch with you. We need to have you on the show. It's been you've been in the comments for too long. You clearly have stories that we need to just let you have like an hour to spew out. But as he said, I would say half the people that were at Nectar's were not there for the band at the time. The front was a different story. It's wild because, to wrap around to your original point here, RJ, like I was listening to this thinking like, oh, people have been talking at Phish shows since Phish became a thing. But it also is the kind of thing where like there's this weird diversion within the Phish community of people that are just there for the party and people that are just there or that are there for like hanging on every note. And I don't know if there's necessarily a right or a wrong way to do it. Like, I know I'm in the latter camp. I'm there for every note. And even if my best friends talk to me, like, the fuck out of my ear, like I'm here for this. But there's definitely a party atmosphere that they create that you hear that mixture here. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah. I like both.
You like both?
Yeah, I like the party, like the music.
What do you like?
Yeah, me too.
You like both?
I like the both. Yeah.
I'm very strict with my Phish consumption.
Like something about that does not surprise me.
It's true.
It's true. Anything else you want to say about Nectar's?
No, I think just the shows are fun to go back to.
They're fun.
I had a lot of fun.
I had a lot of fun.
Yeah, I really like listening to them. Mm-hmm.
We talked on Monday about 2004 Phish. What is it like for you to go from 2004 Phish to 1988 Phish? What does it do to you, kind of like emotionally, listening wise, as you're listening to this?
I mean, it's sort of like a cleanse, Also, especially because the first show opens with Curtain With, which, they played at Coventry, and I think it's just like it's well played, and it's nice to hear these songs as they're developing, and they're so focused on the craft of these songs. And I assume that this is what Trey was trying to recreate when they played the Curtain With at Coventry, because he was telling stories about writing these songs in the cabin, and right. I wonder if like these kinds of experiences came to mind when he was telling those stories, because it's pretty cool and a pretty special moment. And I think Page on the Curtain With, especially, just like his organ, and there's just like a lot of, he's starting to really like shape the direction of the band in a way that I think is cool to hear. in a way that like I think earlier 88, 87 shows, you can't really hear that. But it's starting to kind of like his role's starting to become more solidified.
Yeah, I kept thinking about how incredible it is that they're playing all of these like really challenging songs to play. And it's cool to hear them playing it at slower tempos. You can hear them like learning it and like fleshing it out. And it's just so incredible to think that this is a band that's only been together for 5 years and they're already have a pretty good amount of original material that's super challenging to play. And I think the second night, especially, and we can talk about this when we get there, but it's the flow of that set list is incredible. I think the first show feels a little bit more kind of like hodgepodge, like put together, but the second night I just feel like has such a flow to it and shows like a real strength in set list construction. I'm so curious about kind of how they were putting together their set list then and what they were thinking about. The second night really stands out to me as far as the set list is concerned.
Yeah, it's interesting to think about the way the set lists were constructed. I'm just pulling up. So, as Fish.net has it listed, Fish played 95 shows throughout 1988. They played 42 a year earlier in 87, 19 only in 86. Prior to this 3-night run at Nectar's, they played a 4-night run at Nectar's in May of 1988, a 3-night run in April, 4-night run in March, and a 2-night run in February. So this was like a return to Nectar's at this point in time. I've got to imagine, like, as they're setting up these set lists, it's almost new songs are being written, cover songs are being written, aspects of songs like Fluffhead are being worked out at this point in time, new gear is coming into play. It's kind of a showcase on a monthly basis of where the band is, where they're evolving, where they're adapting. They're trying all these new things. And I agree with you. Like, it seems in a lot of cases like they approach this first night almost as this is everything we have right now. Let's just see what works. And there's a couple of repeats throughout the run. Like You Enjoy Myself was played twice. Fluffhead is played twice. A few other songs. So there's not like a hesitation of this is the only time we're going to play it. It's more like, let's test this out here. Let's see what happens. But I found, just to jump into the first night, there were a couple moments that like really struck me. But overall, like the Curtain With as the opener to this 3-night run really hit me in the same sort of way that you're talking about, RJ. Like, it's a version that I don't know if I would say it's incredibly tight, but it's really emotional, and it kind of leads to the version that they'll play at Pete's Fabulous Fish Festival a month later that goes off into Dave's Energy Guide. This kind of starts to hint towards that, and you can kind of hear the expansive jamming that you would hear the band play throughout 1987 and 1988 kind of come in at this point in time. It's kind of that last period before they would tighten things up a year later, where you really hear the band like just letting an idea kind of, float away and flutter and see what happens with it.
Yeah. And then like going into the rest of that set, like Funky Bitch and Possum and Golgi, LaGrange, Susie, it's all just sort of like bar band rockers, and all pretty like tight and well played. But that Curtain With is kind of the only thing in the couple sets that really like stretches out, which is it's a crazy way to start.
Kind of strikes me as it's interesting how they still seem to approach first sets in a lot of cases with this approach of just let's see what works, let's get a few things going that will just kind of get us in a groove. Obviously there are first sets that like really flow with precision. We heard that last fall a lot, but like this doesn't look like an obscurely weird first set on paper, even though it doesn't totally flow together in the way that you would potentially hear, a decade from now. One question I had was, what is the difference between Big Leg Emma and My Soul? And I'd be curious if you guys have any thoughts on that.
Inappropriate lyrics. Big Leg Emma is probably not a song that's going to be like busted out anytime soon.
I don't think they can play it in 2022.
No. I mean,
I mean, it's a Zappa song, so one's a cover and one's original, and that's it. That's the only difference, I think. I think that's the only difference. That can I just the whole show really is like, to me, the curtain width and then the antelope at the end of the second set, which is really good. But the only question I have is what happened to Art Funk? Is he throughout the whole show? Just wondering, is that a real person? Like,
Yeah, they're making like jokes about him writing stuff, right? Is that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just need to know, is he like, where is he, and does he, is he still
This could
around?
be like some real investigative journalism.
Yeah.
I think we're the people to find him. But yeah, I had that question as well. It's like, is this just like, is this their buddy that they hang out with after the show and they're just like calling out as like jokes at this point in time? But yeah, it's he gets a bunch of call outs here. I agree.
Where's
the
he
antelope,
a made up person?
Where's he a made up person? He may be like Iculus, but Iculus isn't made up right now. Ending set 1 and set 2 with Antelope and You Enjoy Myself felt like I kept thinking this throughout, and I texted you about it, Megan. Like, these set lists are just magical, even when they don't flow together. Like, you're just seeing classic Fish songs and classic covers back to back to back in a way that we just don't see, anymore to this point in time. But ending Antelope is a pretty regular set 2 closer, set 1 closer, even to this day. You Enjoy Myself has strangely kind of found itself midway into sets as they're kind of like figuring out where to place that song, and like it feels like how to rediscover the magic within it. But like, to have these 2 songs just close out your sets is such a massive, like, it's just a baller move. Like, we have these 2 huge songs that we're just going to walk off the stage after we play them.
And that Antelope, you can really hear like the future of greatness in it. It's just so ambitious and they play it really well. After like some really silly things, like I was thinking about what it would have been like to like walk into the bar during Big Black Furry Creature from Mars and then hear them go into Swing Low Sweet Chariot. Like that would have just been so weird. I'm just like, this band is just a trip. They're silly. They're really silly during these shows. They're singing silly.
Yeah, they're having a blast.
They're having
so much fun.
Blast.
So much fun.
It's really fun.
Musically, the only other thing I wanted to add about this show is just in mics and throughout, there's so much Dave's Energy Guide in every page plays Dave's Energy Guide, like in every song. It's like, it's crazy. You can hear it in like almost every jam when they like get outside of a song. It's like Page is playing that.
I want to return to that, but the banter between Big Black Furry Creature from Mars and Swing Low Sweet Chariot just like cracked me up on first listen when they finished Big Black Furry Creature from Mars, and I think it's Trey goes, this next song is in the same vein as the last.
It's like,
just like trying to screw around with the audience as much as possible and throw them off. That like sense of making people really feel uncomfortable, but then making them laugh at that sense of being uncomfortable is such a thing that comes out of Fish shows, and you can just hear them doing it with what is probably a good amount of their friends, as well as a bunch of people who just don't care that much or are just like kind of casually curious. But the mics, I definitely heard Dave's Energy Guide. It's wild to hear just like a 10-minute long mic song that's so noisy. It almost sounds like Sonic Youth at times. And there's no resolution in I Am Hydrogen at this point in time. HFPod Groove hasn't been debuted at this point. It's about a month away. Like, it's just this song that you imagine it without the groove, without the hydrogen, without the groove. Like, who knows where it goes? Who knows like how they turn the song into either a jam vehicle or just into like a straight song. But it's just wild to hear it like on its own here in this third set.
Yeah. And there's the Jesus Left Chicago at the end is also pretty raging jam, and that's it. I don't mean to keep jumping forward, Brian, but the second night they open with Slave, and I just realized like the openers for all 3 nights are like really pretty amazing points. There's the curtain width, there's Slave, and then Fluffhead the third night. Maybe that was like the ambitious point. Was like because the Slave that opens the second night is really beautiful and has a nice like build. It's very patient for like a bar band, but maybe it was like first set, it wasn't too crowded and they were just kind of like taking their time. But I thought that was a really cool way to open a show.
They sound like so much more locked in the second night to me. And I don't know if, like you're saying, maybe they just started out right, or they just, were a little more warmed up. But yeah, this Slave is incredible. And this whole set's amazing. I mean, it's like an awesome Peaches, fantastic Yem, good Fluffhead. I mean, it's a really good first set, strong, and like all except for Peaches originals, which is kind of cool.
I'm just looking it up. There would be one more Slave show opener after this, 11/5/88 until 9/3/2016.
Whoa, that's crazy.
Just stopped opening sets because I think they realized musically, emotionally, this is the song that should cap off a show, cap off a set in a lot of ways. But just kind of wild that, like, you're right. They open each show with 3 massive Fish songs, and 2 of them, I guess Curtain With doesn't open a ton of shows. It's opened a few, but Fluffhead's opened a couple, especially in the 3.0 era. But Slave here just like gets that like right in the door on a Monday night.
Curtain With is such a good opener too. I mean, that to me is like, it should open more shows. It's like Buried Alive or something. It's just a great tone setter.
Yeah. Agree. Yeah.
In a way that like, oh, sorry, go ahead, Brad.
I was just going to say in a way that like is completely opposite to Buried Alive, but like just as impactful. Like that just like gets you rocking in there, but Curtain With is like this contemplative start to a show.
Yeah. Different vibes, but like immediately puts you somewhere.
Yeah. A Slave opener these days would be strange.
Yeah.
Did they open a tour? Didn't they open a show recently with Slave last year?
Not last year. 9/3/16 at Dick's they opened with it,
okay.
But last year they played it a bunch in the first set, which was still just as weird.
It's crazy. Peaches is like I understand why they were covering Peaches. It's kind of the perfect cover for them at this point. I think we talked about that a little bit in other 80s stuff. Like they were clearly Trey was like getting a lot of inspiration from Zappa in terms of his compositions. And you hear like the Peaches and then right after that, one of his compositions. And the You Enjoy Myself is kind of awesome, I think. I mean, that's when I first noticed the people talking. I'm like, man, can you imagine like there's like they're playing You Enjoy Myself at a bar and like everyone's just like chatting about whatever. But I do think they could have taken the cue from the crowd and abandoned the vocal jam in this earlier iteration and saved everyone like hundreds of minutes of their lives throughout the next 20 years. They just said like, maybe we don't need to do this. Maybe we don't need to do this. Everyone's talking anyway. Let's just play the next song. Just saying.
I wish.
Have we ever like I know that the Junto version ends with them singing Wash Your Feet and Drive Me to Frenzy, and then like it like slowly becomes more a cappella and kind of delirious and weird. Has there ever been like an explanation of why they decided to take that and create a vocal jam out of that? I feel like that's just like an unanswered, unexplored terrain in Fish history, because it's kind of weird. Like it's a shtick that worked in small settings, and there are some great vocal jams. 10/7/2000. Everybody go and check that out. Amazing vocal jam. The way that they're using vocal jams now to go back into the jam segment is incredible. But it's kind of crazy that like at some point they weren't like, this is a little ridiculous and we could probably just play music here. But then again, they did the big ball jam like 200 times.
Yeah, seriously. I guess they just like doing it. I don't know. That's the only thing that makes sense to me. I don't really like listening to it, but they like to do it. So
I gotta say I don't think on tape I think I had these tapes, but the second set, the Yamar and like the reggae jam, that's pretty awesome. And that would have been like pretty fun. It seemed like that got the crowd like pretty fired up, especially when they started playing Bob Marley songs and they're like that was pretty cool.
It sounds really fun if you're there. Like it sounds everybody's singing along. It's really fun, but it's a long jam of just
Yeah.
playing.
Yeah. It's like a bar. It's like a bar band. It's like they're just playing songs that people know and everyone's kind of singing or I mean it is long. It's like a third 20-minute segment of the show, but it seemed like it would have been a lot of fun to be there, like you said.
Yeah.
It's like a lot we're revealing about ourselves this week. And I really don't want to just be the contrarian here as the one guy who loves 2004 Fish on this podcast. I didn't enjoy this jam at all. I was mildly offended.
What was offensive about it? Just because it was
Well,
boring?
I mean, the cultural appropriation of it all felt just a little like it was very, hey, we're in Vermont and we're kind of hippies and we smoke some weed, so let's call up Jaw and make sure that everyone's feeling groove. Like it was just it felt a little dirty to me.
A little tone deaf.
That said, the one thing I did like about it kind of reminds me of the way Makasupa Policeman would be used in 1997 and 1998.
Yeah.
Fishman talked a lot about this in the Fish book, the idea that trying to learn how to play reggae on the drums is way harder than it looks because it sounds so simple. And I'm not educated enough musically to even attempt to what he talks about, but he talks about playing on the downbeat and that it's really something muscle memory wise, you have to practice and then you have to forget, because if you sound like you're trying to play that way, you don't sound like you're playing reggae at all. It's all feeling in that sense. And that's a really hard thing to get to. And I was listening to this. I listened to it twice. I put myself through it twice.
You are dedicated, Brian.
I was like, I don't like
really
this
are.
at all.
You just given up after the first time.
I know.
No, but I was like, there's got to be something.
Love this about you. You're just too much.
There's got to be something in here that I can take away from it. And so I went back and I re-listened to it, and I was like, they do not sound like 1997 Fish, but I can hear the early bits of the goals of this democratic approach musically to playing music in that jam.
And
regardless
grooving.
Of it. The groove, the dedication to the groove, which is not something you would think about 80s Fish, that feels very proggy, very punky and filled with kind of ridiculous inside jokes. The idea that this band is going to find groove as their calling card within 9 years, it just seems ridiculous until you hear a jam like this and you're like, okay, I get why this band went in that direction. But I'm not going to listen to it a third time, I'll tell you that much.
Yeah, please don't do that to yourself. I also really like listening to this Haley's too. I just thought it was so funny. It's like a rockabilly kind of bluesy, funkier Haley's. It's got just a funny sound to it that they're singing really hilariously. I mean, they clearly think this song is really funny. And I just love thinking about them just being so absurd and just leaning into it. But then at the end, Trey just absolutely shreds and the crowd totally shuts up, and they go into this cool Wilson intro, and the beats from Wilson just kind of climb out of this mist. It's actually a really cool moment. And then the Wilson just rocks.
It does. It's wild. You get these hints of I wonder what it was like for Trey at this point in time as the lead guitarist of this band that is, they're doing all right at this point. They're playing a lot of shows. I'm sure that 100 shows a year by 1988 felt like a lot. It was starting to turn into a full-time job. You're really planning a lot around it. But at this point, he's becoming the guitarist that he'll become over the next 10, 15 years. And you're hearing it in moments like this, Haley's, and you're hearing that creativity of how do we take one song and bridge it into another song and then grow that song out of that. And that's all stuff that feels normal, but is really hard to do in practice, and to be in a band and decide that you're going to play that way. It takes a lot of failure, and to hear them play it just naturally. These two songs don't fit together. and to make them fit together is just it's really impressive.
Yeah, they sound like they're practicing a lot.
Yeah. I mean, this is the era of the Okipa ceremonies, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where they would kind of just lock themselves in, drink a bunch of who knows what, and just play music for hours on end and just see what happened.
Yeah, I mean, there's some cool moments in this. The David Bowie at the end of set 3 is really cool. Another like long vocal jam in Sneak and Sally, which is like, again, don't need to do that. But they did it anyway, and that's fine.
It's a really good sneaking though. It's like rocking and funky. It's fun.
Yeah.
The vocal gem's weird, but again, they're just like so willing to just lean into total absurdity. It's like commendable.
Yeah. And then they play, and the Tila has like the early configuration of Tila, which went away as of the end of '88. But there's like a whole additional section, and people are just chatting it up about whatever while they're playing this like long fugue.
The Tila moment is really hard to listen to on the tape. You just feel kind of bad for them, but they don't seem to care.
If they cared, they wouldn't be where they are, right?
No, exactly.
They wouldn't have made it.
It's really hard not to care, though. It's really hard not to care when you're like performing something that you made and people are like not really paying attention. And they did that for a long time. It's like, it's incredible.
I mean, I've got to imagine enough momentum was behind them at this point. It's part of the reason why a month later they're going to jump into a car and jump into a U-Haul and drive out to Colorado to play 7 shows for a guy who's scamming them out of gas money and
the best story.
An audience. Like, I don't know. I've got to imagine there's something in the back of their heads at that point that is basically, it doesn't matter what's happening right here. Like, keep doing what we're doing. Like, keep pushing forward. And that I think is really inspiring about this. I mean, I think like the Sally, I think you're right. The vocal jam, I don't know if I'd call it cringy in the Sally, but it's just not very funky or good. It doesn't like really adhere to what the song is, but the jam afterwards is legitimately great. And the Tila, it is wild to think about, like, Tila's a pretty complex song as it ended up, but it's definitely, it just goes off the rails. It reminds me of McGrupp in a sense, where it's like 7 different songs kind of compacted into each other for who knows what reason. I mean, I think they just had so many ideas. It was like, well, this kind of works, so let's just add this as a bridge here, and then we'll go to this section, and then we'll come back to Tila. It's wild to hear how creative they are and how many different ideas Trey is just throwing into songs at this point in time and seeing what will stick and what will ultimately, lead to the finished product. You think about this Tila compared to Fluffhead, which is missing like 4 sections at this point. And the two of them are going to go in very different directions. Tila is going to get more simple. Fluffhead's going to get more complex, and it's just going to fit that way. And listening to this era of Phish, you hear like all that emotion, which is just wild.
I mean, it's so impressive. These are young guys who haven't been playing together that long, and they're playing such complicated music. And Trey's continuing to provide them new complicated music all the time. It's amazing.
Yeah. I mean, this is it's a fun 3-night run. The David Bowie I'd mentioned earlier, it's some great jamming, and it's really a lot of fun. And I don't know, I think the last night had like, it seemed like the sound was much better than the first 2 nights. Do you guys notice that? I feel like the sound
kind of noticed it,
was better. And the fluff head was just great. But again, like a mix, all 3 nights, like we've been talking about, a mix of covers and compositions and then other stuff. But it's sort of like a grab bag of stuff. But like a Mustang Sally, it's a great cover for in a bar, just like raging guitar solos. It's pretty awesome.
It's like a required cover for any aspiring rock band. Like Goose still plays Mustang Sally. And it's amazing to me that like Fish in 1980. When did Fish? I'm gonna look this up so we can insert some banter here. Okay, Fish plays Mustang Sally 2 more times after this performance. Without looking it up, can you guess those 2 other times?
Well, I already looked it up. I'm sorry.
What Willie
That's
thinks
not my wheelhouse.
5/3/85 was Paige's first show with Fish. We actually talked about it on this podcast.
Check out that episode. It's good.
It is good. 5/3/85. They played it with Bruce Springsteen at Bonnaroo.
Bruce Springsteen with Bonnaroo.
Oh, that makes sense.
In Colorado on 8/5/88, like a month and a half later.
They also played Glory Days with Bruce. I just want you guys to know that.
Do you have, before they took it off of Live Fish, do you have a soundboard copy of it?
I don't think so.
I'll send it to you. I have.
Is that allowed?
This sounds illegal, Brian.
Well, they posted the show like the day after, the way that they always do, and it had the 3 performances with Bruce Springsteen, Bobby Jean, which is one of my favorite Springsteen songs ever. I couldn't believe that Fish played it, Glory Days, and Mustang Sally. And then apparently Bruce's camp was like, no, we're not. That's not available for purchase.
We're not cool with that.
It's no longer on Live Fish. I don't think they had a lot of time to rehearse, at least from what I've heard. And it's a little sloppy, but you can hear like Trey is like 15 shows into 3.0 Trey. And he's like, one of my heroes is about to walk on stage at Bonnaroo. This is the coolest thing that has ever happened to a guy that like a lot of cool things have happened to.
Yeah.
And then they go and they play 2 songs off of Born in the USA plus a Mustang Sally massive bust out, 1274 shows. Just a wild thing. If you were in a band and it was successful, was getting successful, at what point would you stop playing Mustang Sally?
I guess right around now. Right around 1988 if you're Fish.
Maybe right after my Colorado trip, my first Colorado trip.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
It's kind of like learning like Hey Joe on guitar. You're just like, okay, cool. I've got it. I can play a rock song in public.
It's a good song. I mean, there's a reason that it's a classic,
Yeah, it's a classic.
It's like Auld Lang Syne. Just a classic. It's like the vocal jam and You Enjoy Myself. It's just classic.
It's classic.
That's not the same.
No, it's not. Fire at the end of this set has a little bit of an extended jam. It's pretty cool. Like they just keep going for another like 4 or 5 minutes, and it kind of is like the Bowie from the night before, the Mike song. It's just like you almost hear Trey hearing like Sonic Youth and My Bloody Valentine at this time, like maybe downloading it to his Apple Music albums of the year playlist and like playing it in the van when they're going out to Colorado. I don't know. There's a sense of like noise that would become something that would become a part of Fish sound 6-7 years from now, but like you can kind of hear it just like starting to swirl around in terms of where they're at this point.
Yeah.
The thing I really wanted to focus on in this show, does anyone have anything they want to say about set 2?
No,
not really.
Set 2 is just kind of like a mishmash of songs. Just happens.
Yeah.
Set 3, we have on tape. This may be incomplete. We don't know. But we've got Harpua, I Didn't Know, and Whipping Post. First, this
is
Harpua.
Pretty cool.
My favorite part of this entire Harpua. How about a goldfish? No, I don't want a goldfish. How about a haddock? No, I don't want a haddock.
I don't want a haddock.
How about a trout?
I don't want a trout. It's so good. It's so good. It's very funny.
I was in the middle of doing something yesterday. I was working at my computer and I was listening to the show, and that part came on, and I was just like pulled out of whatever I was doing because it's just like on the fly fish humor right there. I'm curious how many people were talking, like looked up at that point to be like, "Oh, what the hell are they singing? Why are they singing about different types of fish right now?"
They're like, "Oh, they're fish. That makes sense. That must be what they do."
That was my thought when I first heard Loving Cup. RJ, as someone who's seen a lot of harpuas, where does this one rank for you?
It's fine, totally fine. It's like a couple minutes. The narration is, I mean, I think they definitely got more elaborate and more like out there over time. So, it's always fun. I don't know. I feel like this was just one of the songs they played at the time, and as a
Yeah, it's like
catalog
just as
develops,
weird as a lot of the other stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. But we gotta talk about the whipping post, right?
We do. Your point there is really interesting. Harpua has been played 85 times. I'm not going to do the numbers right now, but between its debut on 5/11, 87, and the end of the 80s, I mean, it looks like it's been played like 25 or 30 times. Like the vast majority of the performances are at that point. And I think it's a really interesting point that like it doesn't really stand out as a weird song at this point in time because so much of Fish is really weird in like 1988, and it's just kind of like a part of their rotation. It's played so regularly. It was played previously on 5/24/88, and then again 7/25/88, 7/30/88. Like it's going to be played regularly throughout the latter 2 years of the 1980s, and then it's going to fall off, and it's just going to like find itself in as big of a bust out as you could get, it as big of a rarity as you could possibly get. But yes,
you gotta subtract 20 from that 85, because 20 of those times, that's like the one downside of the Fishnet listings, is it lists the
you're right
times per show.
Oh, because it goes back into it. They lifted
they
twice.
really only played it at 65 shows.
Yeah, you're totally right about that.
Yeah, because if you look up like
vast majority.
Yeah, it's not that many.
Wow, you've seen a lot of them then. Vast majority.
So many. The vast majority. 25-minute jam to close.
It's incredible.
That's what happened.
This whipping post it's unreal. There's so much power. You hear you hear 80s Fish, and you get a lot of whipping posts. The vast majority of whipping posts are actually played in the 1980s. Since the 1980s, there are a couple Fishman versions that happened in 1990, 91, one in 92, one in 93, one in 96, and then 7/25/99, a show that needs to be released at some point in time on soundboard. But the majority of these performances are in the mid-1980s, and it is treated as a jam. One of my favorite Fish jams ever is 11/23/85. It's a 27-minute version. But this one, what are you guys' thoughts on this version of Whipping Post?
It's pretty exciting. It's pretty exciting to listen to. I mean, Trey is just absolutely shredding, and it's like type 2 before that was even like a thing.
Yeah, you get a Dave's Energy Guide jam. There's like a lot of dissonance in it. It's all told 25 minutes in length, which makes it the third longest whipping post ever played. A month earlier in Burlington, they played a 26-minute version at a very good show, 5/24/88. And 3 years prior, they played a 27-minute version in at Goddard College. But yeah, it's just Page on the B3. It's like it just dominates this overall jam.
Yeah, a lot more Dave's Energy Guide, a lot more like kind of dissonance in there. It's fun, man. It's a good one. This is a good one.
Does it surprise you that they haven't played, that this didn't become a reliable cover as they moved into the 1990s?
I just don't think they could do it. I just don't think it fit with their whole their goals. I think they were like, I mean, they had pretty much abandoned the big covers by like their big influences by 89 or 90.
It seems much like so classic rock to me. It stands out.
Think like Almonds, Dead, Stones, like they just like, with a couple Led Zeppelin exceptions, they just like kind of dropped out. I feel like that they had to, or at least according to their thing. I mean, I don't know, Brian. I think you were part of that conversation, but we interviewed John from the Disco Biscuits in 2020, like at the beginning of the pandemic, and he talked about he like stopped listening to Fish in like around 97 because when he was like playing, he was like subconsciously playing Trey licks. It's just like if you're trying to build your repertoire, like you gotta like step away from that. And I think by like 89 they start the repertoire expands, and I think they start focusing more on that. But there's always like the jazz covers, and there's still like tons of covers, but I think getting away from those things that are a little bit too close to home was important to them. Although Led Zeppelin seemed to have stuck around for a long time, maybe because like Good Times, Bad Times just rocks too hard to like leave behind. And Fire by Hendrix.
Yeah, those were the first two that came to my mind, but I think like the thing with those two is they're so contained, whereas like Whipping Post ends up in a long jam by the Allman Brothers, and it ends up in a long jam here pretty much every time Fish plays it. And post 88, they kind of really start reining things in a way that I don't know how they would have played this song in 1990 and 1991, which is probably why, as they did, it becomes a Fishman joke song until they play it, in 99, and Trey sings it at that point, and it goes off into a jam before fading into Makasupa. So I think I agree, like, it would ultimately end up just not fulfilling where their goals were at the time, which seemed to be, let's tighten things up. Let's have humor and banter as a part of a lot of our shows. Let's have compositions in every show, before they started to jam again in 1990, parts of 92, but mainly 1993, 94. It's just wild to me how great this song sounds in the 1980s. And it just doesn't, it's just gone. It's just like, you have to like search back in history to hear these versions. And every Whipping Post I've ever listened to from the 80s just absolutely rocks.
Yeah, it's kind of incredible that they have a song that they just absolutely did so well playing and then decide not to play it. It speaks to them really being intentional.
Yeah. And I think it is interesting, like the point you made, RJ, about like kind of the abandon your heroes type of phase. And I think that's something Trey definitely talked about in the Fish book when thinking about this era. If you hear yourself playing like Jerry Garcia, playing like you're in the Allman Brothers, I've got to imagine as he's trying to write some really ambitious songs that kind of trickles in of like, am I sounding too much like my influences, or do I sound enough like myself? And a song like this, it's so easy to just like fall into his own inspiration, but also fall into kind of like emulating your heroes, that maybe that was just something they just wanted to completely abandon and get away from, which is wild because at this point there's no Dead covers. They're gone. They've been gone for 2 years. I wonder if they're even listening to the Dead at this point.
It might have been what they were hearing too, in terms of their like who they sounded like,
Yeah.
Like,
I'm sure people were already comparing them to them.
Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm. I don't think anyone was going to tell them they're like Led Zeppelin, but Allman Brothers, maybe. Dead, definitely. I don't know.
I know I've heard Trey talk about when he stopped listening to Jerry, but I don't remember when it was.
I think it was around this time.
Yeah, that it was intentional. And
I mean, I think the last Dead covers are, I don't have it off the top of my head, but I think it's 10/15/86. There's a really great Slipknot, and I think that is the last time that they would play a Dead cover. At some point around this point, yeah, Trey throws his Dead tapes away and just stops listening, which I feel bad because he missed a lot of really good Grateful Dead in the late 80s and early 90s.
He got to go back, though.
He
listened to so much of it, yeah, later on.
And he got to go back and become the guitarist in 2015.
Exactly.
Cool.
I think it worked out for him.
Could you ever imagine yourself just like swearing off and not listening to your favorite band?
I mean, I kind of did it. I kind of stopped listening to Fish for a long time. So I guess, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if it was for a good reason, I guess, you know.
Yeah, it's just
Like,
something I've always admired
think-
about his decision there.
Yeah, I mean, if it like would help advance my career to stop like listening to the Beatles or the Dead, I'd probably do it, but I don't think it would at this point. I don't think it would make me a better media company executive.
Probably not.
I'm going to stop listening to the Beatles. Fuck this.
We're not listening to the Grateful Dead until we can cover Terrapin Station at a company Christmas party.
Exactly. Then we can bring
it
back. But it makes the return even sweeter. I mean, I'm sure when he got to dig into all that stuff for Fare Thee Well, it was just like, he was probably so happy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So overall, what are our takeaways on this 3-night run? What do we think about Fish in the summer of 1988?
They're super fun. They're having fun. They're working really hard, and they're just playing a lot of really complicated music.
Yeah, I don't go back to 80s Fish very much except for this show, and it's always more enjoyable than I expect it to be. Like I just always default to like the late 90s or current day, and it's fun to go back to. There's a lot happening. There's more happening there than it might seem, I think, is my takeaway.
Yeah, we were talking about it earlier, like all these songs are kind of still in flux of what their finished product is going to be. I really like that aspect of it. And also the idea of just like seeing Fish in a bar and being like, hey, can everyone shut up? Can you guys just listen to this? Like, this band is going to play the Riverport Gin at some point. You just wait and see. I know you don't know what that means. It's now called like the Budweiser stage in Maryland Heights, Missouri, whatever it is.
The governor of Arkansas will be president. They're going to play this. They're going to play this. This insane.
You guys just wait.
Just wait. Who's the Secretary of State? Jerry Lee Lewis. You remember that from Back to the Future?
Oh my God.
So, okay. Before we wrap up, Cinnamon has a couple comments for us.
Okay, you start from the top.
No, that's it. That was the one I was going to put up there first.
This is a really good question. This is for those listening, Cinnamon does a great job in our pre-show hangs of giving us questions that risk taking us right up until Fish showtime because they throw us off. They throw a curveball to us. Megan, what is your Desert Island live Fish recording?
Oh God, if I only get one, 12/30/97.
Make a rule that when one person picks one, it's gone. You can't take it to your Desert Island. So I can't.
Thank God I went first. Thank God I went first.
I was going to take that one too.
What do you got, RJ?
I would say 12/30/97 also, but man, there's something else, but I can't think of it right now. But I would take 11/21/97.
I would go 6/14/2000.
I thought you were going to say a 95 show. I'm shocked. I thought you were going to say summer 95.
Just all of summer 95?
Yeah, the whole thing.
I'm just going to break the rules. 6/14/2000. That second set, I will hang out, watch the waves come in, watch the eventual tsunami take over, finish out my last rations of food, get sunburned while listening to the Fukuoka Jam, #1.
Why does this sound so good to me, being on a desert island with one fish recording?
That's Brian's whole thing is Japan. I know it.
That show is insane.
It's kind of criminal not to say Big Cypress because it's 7 hours, but none of us said it.
But it's not a live fish recording, though, right? Is it supposed to be like a live fish?
Wow.
I don't know. Cinnamon didn't capitalize
that changes
live.
everything. That changes everything.
Okay.
Also, one of Cinnamon's earlier comments was, I'm just posting this not because of what he said about me, which is very nice, but 36 from the vault, but for fish, which would imply that would be a live fish, starting with #1, which would be Binghamton 95, which would be really fun. And
oh my God, that'd be so fun.
I think it's something we should think about.
It's a really good idea.
I'm really into it. I think we should think about it for fish and perhaps maybe another band that's released a live catalog.
Brian and I've been down this road, Cinnamon. So you better just wait.
Careful what you wish for. I will say that.
Seriously.
One note. I don't know if I told you guys this. I told some other fish friends this if I didn't tell you it, but I'm going to tell her on the podcast. My wife had work friends over a couple of weeks ago. All these people that she's been working with for the last 2 years and has never actually seen in person. They all came over to our house, ordered food. It's fun. One of her colleagues and I got talking. I was like, "Oh, so where are you from? What brought you out to Denver?" She goes, "Oh, I'm from Binghamton, New York." And I immediately go, "Oh, nice."
Yeah, you did tell me that.
Yeah, you did tell us. We're the fish friends you told. Sorry, go ahead.
What's so nice about Binghamton? Which I had to tell her all the great fish shows that were played in Binghamton.
That's just fantastic.
She didn't care. I did, though. I was very excited. It made my night. So
you can come over anytime you want.
Let's talk about the what is that venue? The Broome County Forum Arena. Let's just talk about that. She was like, I don't know what you're talking about. I've never seen a concert there. But yes, Cinnamon, we may have something in the works for you. Anything else we need to say about these shows, or can we start the transition to the next show? We're going to do it. Next week, we'll be back Monday, June 27th, with a 2-night run that I can't wait to dive into. I can't wait. I cannot wait for Megan to go for her run, listening to the 628-2000 Bathtub Gin and the 629-2000 Drowned in the Rock and Roll and just get it. I can't wait.
Brian has given me a job to do with this.
I'm so
excited. It's kind of fun.
Well, when you listen to a run that you have not heard before and you go for a run when you do it, your reaction is incredibly earnest. And it's something I wish we could capture to put on the podcast, which is why we do this live, just because then you're like, yes, that was it. PNC 2000, 628 to 629, 2000. Listen up, do your homework so that you're all prepared out in the comments section with thoughts, opinions, suggestions, everything. We'll be back Monday, June 27th at 4:30 p.m. Eastern to do it. And I have 2 other really quick things, actually 3 other really quick things I meant to say at the top of the show, but I forget how we got sidetracked. One is we just recorded and we're putting out on Friday a bonus episode. We talked about our favorite fish banter, favorite fish humor. It was a really fun episode. Check it out. Keep an eye out for that. You can subscribe at Apple Podcasts. If you're an Apple Podcast subscriber, you can subscribe to Osiris Media. You get HFPod Premium, 1 bonus episode every week, ad-free content for a bunch of other stuff from Osiris. For anyone out there who's going to summer tour shows, hit us up on Twitter. We are currently booking people to review and recap shows the day after. So reach out to us for that. We will start making announcements for that here in the next week or so, because we want to get you all on screen talking about your experience at fish shows. And then finally, please like, review, and share HFPod with your friends helps to showcase to Apple that, hey, we're serious and we're good and we're fun. Give us a good like, give us a good review, give us a good rating, 5 stars, please, and share this info with your friends. I think that's all that from a initial business segment. The final thing that we need to tell you about is Sunset Lake CBD, which I'm going to ask my good friend, RJB. Good friend, tell us about Sunset Lake CBD, please.
Yeah, I mean, I can do that. I just want to tell everyone again that we are sponsored by Sunset Lake CBD. As you all know, they are Vermont grown and farmer owned. And that's awesome. We love them. You should like them. I think Megan said there's some kind of crazy sale on flower. They have 9 different strains from this year's harvest. There's lots of other stuff like gummies and tinctures and salve that Jonathan uses for his arthritic hands and things like that. I think that's what he uses it for. I don't know. Maybe I should have asked him before I said that. But
I think you're right.
Smoking,
right.
Okay, good. Smoking CBD is great and has all the benefits of high THC cannabis without some of those side effects that some people have. And you can get it shipped directly to you. It comes fast. It's amazing. It's good stuff. Go to sunsetlakecbd.com and use the code HFPod and help support independent podcasting and Sunset Lake CBD.
And please check out cashertrade.org, the only secondary ticketing marketplace. Buy, sell tickets for summer tour. Casher Trade and Sunset Lake are 2 friends in this upcoming summer tour. RJ, Megan, thanks, guys. This was fun.
Thank you.
This was fun. Thanks, guys.
It was fun to talk about fun fish. We will see you all back here on Monday to talk about summer 2000. Fish awesome. 2000.
Thanks, everybody, for commenting.
See you guys.
See you guys.